Galen and I are on this adventure with you over the next 6 weeks where we want to explore together the fact that religion, Christianity for that matter, many people today are quite skeptical of religion. And in many ways, rightly so. And yet we'd like to put something out there that there's a difference between bad religion and good religion. So first of all, I want to begin by saying this. We don't profess to think that I, or the Trinity, is the perfect church, or we've got our act together. We want to highlight what is it about religion that is good. And so today, we're going to look at the fact that if I just stop people on the street and ask them about church, or about Christianity, or about religion, what do you think people say? And sadly, I think we all acknowledge that we know that many things are beautiful in this world that religion is about. But sadly, like a lot of our news, people think about the hypocrites, the judgers, and of course, Jesus knew this very well. Barbara, your story. I mean, there you were looking for baptism in a classic story. I hear it over and over again. I've heard it my whole ministry. When I needed the church, I was judged and I was turned away. Classic, sad story. But you persevered. Jesus has very harsh judgment for those who judge others and don't see they look at the speck and miss the log. And he totally gets very critical of those who judge the woman caught in adultery. He gets very critical of those who attack the tax collector, and even the Samaritans who happen to worship differently. He is very critical of those who judge. So I want to show you the first two slides. We've already got the first one up. So on my adventure of sabbatical time, one of the highlights of 3 weeks of travel was heading from right here across Northern Ontario, through Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and with my nephew, Jeff, and Melissa, my daughter. The three of us traveled, of course, to beautiful Lake Louise. And the next slide is basically a slide that Jeffrey, who you saw previously, would say this was his favorite moment of the trip. Now, I've said this maybe to you before, but Jeff, who is a character, personality, probably more like his Uncle John than anybody else. So he's full of beans. I didn't put that picture up, but he's a character. But Jeff survived 7 years ago a catastrophic car accident, coma for a week. None of us knew if he was going to live or not. So God bless him in his journey. So I'd say to Jeff, you're not a churchgoer. He thinks he's maybe spiritual, but I said, what is it about this picture that was so exciting to you? Well, first of all, I confess, we were walking past Lake Louise, and we went very far. All the tourists were walking this way, and then there was a sign, and it said, caution, avalanche territory. And so Jeff had to cross over the line and start to walk. And you look up, and what has happened here is this past winter, some of the worst avalanche happening was the giant force of nature bringing these trees and just twisting them like sticks. So I said to him, why is this such a beautiful experience? He said, well, I've never seen anything like it. And he said, I'm in awe of the beauty of nature, but I'm also in awe of the pain and the power. So I want you to think about that for a minute. Some of us feel like us in the church that there's a bit of an avalanche happening. The church that we found comfort in and great experiences growing up is nothing like it was. I mean, we all remember the days if we grew up in the church when the Sunday school, I'd have 10 and 12 kids in my Sunday school. We'd have 10 classes, like over 100, 200 kids, right? And as I quote really a colleague here in town said at our Guelph United meeting the other night, there's almost 3 feelings happening in the church right now. There's probably more, but we'll name 3. I agree with him. Jim said, some of us are just grieving that the church we knew is dying. And many of us feel that way at times. Number 2, though, there's And sometimes we're all three of these. Don't think we're all separate here. There's another group of people that think, well, you know what? If we just work a little bit harder, if we just do some real more, we can turn the corner and we can get back to the way we were in the 60s when everyone went to church. Then there's the third group. And that third group is an interesting group because they believe that the Reformation is at foot right now, like every 500 years. Phyllis Tickle talks about this as a theologian. Martin Luther had it with the Protestant Reformation. Now, the church as we had known in Christendom, when everyone went to church, it's Christians, something new is being born. And that's the third feeling that many people have. So I want you to think about that. Jesus knew that this world was beautiful but also painful. So remember that when you think about even as tragic as it is right now with Irma. You know, the one thing about this part of the mountains, and Jeff said it himself, creation has a way of rebirthing and renewing itself. Maybe that's a message for us. Next slide, please, Marion. So I had to show you this slide because I took my daughter and nephew to church one Sunday. I didn't really have to drag them because I said, you know, I'd heard about Hillhurst United Church downtown Calgary. And this church likes to really express a reality that they've tripled in size in the last 10 years, which is true, 200 kids in the Sunday school. This is the United Church, for all kinds of reasons, is really, changing and reforming and becoming something new. And so here's what happened in a real brief synopsis. I'm walking up to this church, and there were people actually, before I took this picture, they're not there right now, but there was people that actually came out on the steps before I even walked into the building. Come on in. And there was a sense of, there's one thing you get at Hillhurst. They like to say they're not like any other church. You go casual. You can go with a tie if you want, but there's no pressure. They want you to know that this is not like the typical judging church. This is a church everyone is welcome. It doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is. It doesn't matter who you are, where you've come from. Everyone is welcome. So I said to my nephew, what was so intriguing to you about the service? And it certainly wasn't, the music didn't grab him. There was only one thing that really grabbed him in the service, because he's not used to going to church. And he sat there, and on that Sunday there was a CBC radio personality who interviewed Reverend Pentland, John, on the Lord's Prayer. And the CBC Calgary interviewer, they sat on stools, he went at John phrase by phrase with the Lord's Prayer. What do you mean? Who is the Father? What do you mean this in heaven? This kind of stuff. And John replied with him in a dialogue. Jeff said to me, I love that. The best part of that service was that I could identify with a skeptic, a questioner, like the CBC guy who got to ask the minister whatever he wanted to ask them, and they had a lot of fun with it. Right away, a 22-year-old who doesn't go to church felt very comfortable as soon as he had the freedom to ask the questions that were on his mind. Everything else about church was pretty foreign to him. Now, they offered coffee afterwards. Nobody really ran over to us and said, welcome to the church, but it was very clear that you're here, whoever you are at Hillhurst, wherever you've come from, you are welcome here on our journey. And this is a church that actually celebrates risking. They don't want to do it the same way, and that's why they have a staff of about 12 at their staff meetings each week. They probably have 20 in total, and they do countless kinds of ministry. And they want to risk, and they're willing to risk failure, whatever they do. So that was a really important part of my journey I wanted to share with you. The next slide. Oh, this is inside Hillhurst. The other thing that was a bit of a wake-up for me is people have said, oh, you know what? You better get the pews out of the church, or you better take care of the choir, you better, everyone's trying to, the ones who want to work a little harder, they want to try to change the church in some ways. Well, it's got nothing about a building. They had pews. It was an old church. It's about the people. And they were very excited about what they were doing in their ministry of welcoming everybody and not being a church of judging, but a church of love. So the next slide. So this is a story I want to share with you as a conclusion. We were in a place called Indianhead, Saskatchewan, 1 hour east of Regina. And we, thanks to Jim and Nancy here at Trinity, they invited us, connected us with Dora and Glenn Horseman, lovely couple, treated us like we'd known them our whole lives. And they said to us, oh, by the way, we had dinner with them, and they said, by the way, our son has a bakery. And Jim and Nancy made sure that we'd have a little breakfast there. It's a bakery. We could have a nice, best breakfast I think we had on the road. And lo and behold, we heard a story about transformation. And I think it has a beautiful message about what love can do and risking can do in your life. So the next slide, Marion. So there's good old Jeffrey in the background. That's kind of my personality. He's got his thumbs up, and Melissa. But the person I really want to talk about is Bart. Bart Horseman, it's his mom and dad I met the night before. Bart opened up a photo album to us, and he had the pictures of transformation of this bakery. He'd been a truck driver for most of his life. He finally said to himself, you know what, he loved being a truck driver, but I'm tired of being away from the kids and my wife, a teacher. So there was a bakery in Indianhead, and sadly the owner was dying of cancer, and the bakery was pretty rustic, let's say. And the thing I learned about Bart, he gave us a tour of the in behind where the bread and all the food is made. He confesses being OCD. It's the cleanest place I've ever seen in my life. The walls are white. I didn't see anything, but oh my God, it was cleaner than the operating room, I think. So this bakery, though, has become, I think there's 4 or 5 locally owned bakeries in all of Saskatchewan. With the help of, I didn't even know his father, they truck out bread and baked goods all over Regina. They go all over the province, I believe. And the cafe is beautiful. And there's a reason why it's beautiful. On a long weekend of Easter weekend a few years ago, the regulars that come to the coffee shop on a Thursday were told, you know, we're going to make a little change to this place. Bart said he got all his friends together, plumbers, electricians, everybody imaginable, interior designs, and he turned, I mean, I saw the before pictures, it was really divey, you know, and I think the man that did eventually die and sold it to him was passing on his legacy. Okay, Bart, you go make this yours. But Bart did it with 20 plus people. I said, how'd you get that many people on an Easter weekend to work 4 days straight? He said, $778 worth of beer. But what I learned about this gentleman, he's a small town boy. These are people that care about their town. Indianhead right now, church after church are closing. Like so many small towns in Saskatchewan and across Canada, they're just really struggling. So it takes real creative spirit to imagine how are you going to do something that is going to attract people. And they got signage on the Canada Highway, you know, and basically Trans-Canada, you see the Indianhead Bakery, and they open from 3 until 5 in the afternoon. I said, who's coming in here for a donut then? He goes, the truck drivers are. So the hours are unbelievable, and the people that work there, they love it. I saw them, they love working for Bart. They love it because they inspire that they're there to welcome people, and they make really good baked food. So last thing I said to Bart before leaving, I said, thank you. I said, you should be on like CBC. You should be on a TV show of transformation, something. He never thought about that. But I said to him, you know what? Tell me about church. How would church be better for you if it was your call? Because he's great imagination. You can't see it in this picture, but it was chilly. He was wearing shorts. He looked at me and he said, you know what? If I could go to church and wear my jeans and my shorts and nobody judged me, I'd probably find my way in church. I thought, interesting. He has this image too that he's not accepted unless he looks a certain way in going to church. So my friends, thanks Bart. I hope to cross your path again when I go to Indianhead, because I hope anybody that goes west will stop in and check out the Indianhead Bakery. So my friends, I got another slide here. Well, you got to end every message with something like a golden retriever, don't you? Right? My Jasper. So, love does really keep the world going, and Jesus knew that. And all of us at times can be honestly confess ourselves that we've judged others because of how they've dressed, maybe how little money they had or how much money they had. We've judged people left, right, and center, and we've done it. We do it. Jesus knew this, and he was critical of it. But the answer, Jesus kept reminding us, is love. And the thing about whether it's your 17-year-old cat or your dog or your goldfish or your parrot, God knows, whatever animal, one thing you realize about your animals in life is that they are like so darn loving and forgiving. And Jasper got a little sick this week. He couldn't walk on his back paw. He was three-legged. My mind seems to go to the worst, and the vet wasn't quite sure. And this guy drives me crazy most of the time. So I'm driving for x-rays, almost crying, going, I've kind of taken this dog for granted. He's kind of hard on me. And then when he couldn't walk for 5 days, I was realizing how much I loved him. And he never stopped loving me the whole time. And the good news is a bit of antibiotics. And he had a little bit of cellulitis, I believe. So he's back on the road again. And the first time he started barking, we were happy for a change. The only thing I will close, and maybe this is a message for us in the church, we're not perfect, but when people come in our doors, we should try to put our best foot forward. We should try, even days that are hard, try to love everybody, try to be inviting. The other night, Friday night, I was going to mention to Barb, I had a gentleman in here, and he was very, very emotional about Trinity. His son had been baptized 20 years ago. He said, I walked in, the band was playing outside, and he said, this church smells like it always did. So yeah, that's a good sign. And then he said, when I was here as a young man, he said, Hilda Dunsteith was a wonderful person in the science school. He went on about that. And he said he just wanted to sit in the sanctuary for a little bit. Profound memories of this place. And I thought, how important it is, someone comes in your door, you put your best foot forward. So I'm going to close with this. I walk into the veterinary clinic, because I have a mobile vet, but I went to get x-rays. My dog, who had not put his foot down on his back paw for 3 days, walks into the clinic, stands up like Scooby-Doo on his back leg, like, can I get a job here? And I thought, even a dog that is as sick and as hurting as he was tries to put his best foot forward. That's how much love can change the day.